Hello, everybody. Welcome to our panel. Today we're going to talk about some social media censorship. We're going to start with Gabe for some context.
All right, so recently, Facebook banned multiple extremist voices from their platform, including Alex Jones, Louis Farrakhan, and Milo Yiannopoulos. And there's a debate going around about whether or not this violates the constitutional right to free speech. Thoughts?
Move to Dan first, I guess.
All right. So, I think that because the thing is, Facebook and the company under their control, Instagram, both cited part of their community guidelines as a reason for taking them down, which they said was inciting violence. Now, none of these people, while they may have said things which seemed hateful or offensive, actually incited violence. And when Facebook was called to comment upon them, they didn't really give anything clear about it. But even though, while people can say it's wrong, I think it's wrong to tell a private corporation like Facebook or Google to what to do on their platforms, because it is not the government's role to police what private corporations decide to do.
I see.
So, talking about inciting violence in terms of hate speech. Hate speech, by its nature, is divisive. So you're trying to create a conflict between separate groups. So do we think that there is an intrinsic connection to violence in terms of creating two separate groups that are pitted against each other?
Well, number one, they didn't really cite. Well, maybe they cited hate speech. I don't know. But as someone who's went over what all of them said, I couldn't really find anything by like Milo Yiannopoulos that equated to hate speech, or like Laura Loomer was another person that got censored that equated to hate speech. They mostly got shut down. I think that they mostly got shut down because they were conservative, and they added in Louis Farrakhan as like a buffer to like as a way to say that we're not only censoring conservatives, because we add in Louis Farrakhan, who's like way more extreme than Milo is in his rhetoric, because he says like Jews are Satanists, and that like black people should forcibly remove themselves from white society to like create their own like violently created communities, I guess.
Here's the thing. I don't think this is a conservative versus liberal type of thing. I think it's more that these people are just putting out content that is false and harmful to the community.
Can you name one thing Milo Yiannopoulos said that would be false and harmful?
Well, I'm not talking specifically about Milo Yiannopoulos, but, like, for instance, Alex Jones, which was the big name that was getting thrown around, he has promoted many conspiracy theories, such as saying that the victims of school shootings were false actors, and that caused, like, lots of harassment for them on top of that PTSD that they got by being in the school shooting. And Louis Farrakhan is the leader of the Nation of Islam, a group that is classified as a black supremacist group, and they have a history of violence towards basically any group that is not who they are. And I think that to promote that ideology is very dangerous. Even if what they're saying is not directly violent, it's associated with all these violent, harmful acts. And for that reason, I think that Facebook is totally in the right to ban them.
Well, if you think about the incident that we had when Joe Biden was at University of Buffalo, when we had the incident that we weren't actually sure if he was going to come out to speak, because there were several weaponized mail packages that were sent to prominent leaders that were citing these kinds of vernacular that these people are using. And I think that that's a problem if they're not actually saying go out and fight these people, but they are creating a divisive partisan environment that which breeds and targets these people. Like, think about 4chan and these different forums that people go on. I mean, they're citing these people and heralding them as heroes of their ideology, and then they get radicalized, and then they incite violence.
Well, so the thing is that you can't necessarily blame Alex Jones for what people who listen to him do, unless if he is either like paying them to do it, or he is directly like telling his fans to do it. If he is just is saying stuff which could be false and malicious and all of that, but he is not directly telling them to harm other human beings, then it is not incitement of violence.
He doesn't have to be directly involved. He can be indirectly involved.
But then it impedes on free speech, because you can use that to target anyone. Like if someone like says, let's say Ben Shapiro or someone that's more moderate, or like someone on CNN told them something that caused them to attack other people, we would not blame like Ben Shapiro or CNN for doing that.
Well, here's the thing. I believe that all actions start from what you think and how you feel, and by putting their opinions on such a large platform that's accessible to so many people, especially when these opinions are false and hateful towards certain demographics, that will inevitably lead to acts of violence. And also, the thing that Philip said about partisanship, this is against the very values our country was founded on. Because, like, George Washington specifically warned against, like, division between political factions. And I feel like it's just un-American for people like Alex Jones and Louis Farrakhan to make those statements on their platform.
Okay. And if we want to talk about freedom of business, I mean, look what has been happening to Jean Pirro, who has said a lot of controversial comments that weren't necessarily violent. She's had a lot of her advertisers pulled, and that's kind of caused her to at least take a look at what she's saying. I mean, it's not necessarily too terribly much better, but at least there is some sort of reckoning that comes privately from private corporations. However, it's gotten to the point where we have several incidents of people being radicalized by hate speech, where the government definitely needs to take a serious look.
Okay, but the thing is that so there's a difference, because we can say that while it is entirely within Facebook's right to censor them, we can still, within their legal right to censor them, we can still condemn it as being wrong. Like, there are many things which are perfectly legal, like, let's say, adultery, that we can still condemn as wrong. And free speech applies in a public atmosphere, on public grounds like parks and stuff like that. But in a private platform like Facebook or YouTube, we can say that they're stifling free speech, but it's still legal because they're not on a public grounds.
And you know what? So you made the distinction between legal and morally correct.
Yes.
And I think that it's totally within their it's morally correct for Facebook to ban these people from their platform. Like, I strongly believe that if they create the platform, they can do whatever they want with it. And it's not up to us to judge them for, like, taking some stuff off. Even, you could say it's targeting conservatives, but the matter of the fact is, the people that they took off were promoting hateful actions and hateful opinions, which is not something that should be done. But I will make this concession. So Facebook does, and actually other social media platforms, do have, I'd say, inconsistent standards about this, because Mark Zuckerberg was on record a while ago saying that he wouldn't ban Holocaust deniers from Facebook as long as they sincerely believe what they were saying. So I will say that their standards are inconsistent, and I feel like they do need to make their standards more clear so that people can, watch what they say.
And what better role does the government have than creating clear, universal standards to be adopted by corporations? I mean, that's the point of regulation, is to make it so it is clear when boundaries will be crossed. It's why they've been holding hearings in Congress about it. It's why we've been talking about it, is so we can create those standards by which we don't have that gray area in vague community guidelines. We have legal grounds in which it can be regulated.
But who says the legal grounds won't be vague?
That's up to our Congress, and that's up to our elected officials.
But the whole debate about Facebook was it illegal what they did right now without the laws that they're proposing in Congress? And I think it was perfectly legal to do because it's still a private platform.
Right.
But I think we can also still judge them for what they did and condemn them for what they did without saying that it's none of our business, because Facebook is a widely used platform that many billions of people have access to. So we can still have the ability to condemn them for what they did.
But what is there to condemn them for? Like, are you going to condemn them for stopping the spread of hate speech? Because, in the past there was a lot of criticism of Facebook for spreading, like, hateful opinions during, say, the past elections. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this was a step in the right direction. Even if it infringed on free speech a little bit, I feel like it was a step in the right direction.
But many of these people didn't say anything hateful. Alex Jones did, but what they also did on at least the Instagram ban, I don't know about YouTube or anything, but if you put any reference to Alex, well, like, I guess not reference, but if you put any clip of yourself, any new clip of, like, let's say Joe Rogan does another interview with Alex Jones.
Right.
and Joe Rogan puts that interview on Instagram, part of it. Then Joe Rogan's account can get taken down just for referencing Alex Jones now. That doesn't apply to other people like Milo and Louis Farrakhan, but in this case, it applies to Alex Jones, which I think is a stiflement, because even if he's not saying anything that could be interpreted as hate speech on Joe Rogan's podcast, even if he's spewing his conspiracy theories, which are not necessarily hateful, Joe Rogan can still be taken down just for having Alex Jones on.
Well, then that's up to Joe Rogan. That's up to his ability to allow him to be on his show and to support him by, even if not paying him, which I'm assuming that he was at least compensated in some way, letting him be on that platform and letting him spread that his language. I mean, that's the role that we have to play. And even if you're just having him on to talk about it, you're giving him more bodies that he can reach and more ground to be able to talk about it, and that's dangerous in itself.
Wouldn't that be Joe Rogan's right to do? And why would Instagram just take down a on face value, if Joe Rogan's post is benign, why would Instagram take it down?
Was the post in question?
Well, I mean
hypothetically.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that the content would then be reviewed manually, because there's a lot of problems with automatically taking it down.
Of course.
Reviewed manually. And if there was no questionable content as classified by either hate speech, inciting violence, or developing insightful and hurtful theories not based on fact, then there would be a manual discussion. It would get taken down.
You know what?
But it's not only theories like that. If they're taking him, if he's just has him on and they're talking about, let's say, UFOs or something, and he's on Joe Rogan's Instagram account in a future post, which they probably won't do because he doesn't want to get risk taken down. Then Instagram or Facebook, either one, could have the right to take down Joe Rogan's entire account. That's the way it now works. Not for the other people like Milo and stuff, but just for Alex Jones. That's the way.
Well, you know what? So Snoop Dogg posted some videos like promoting Louis Farrakhan after Louis Farrakhan got taken down, and Snoop Dogg never got banned from Twitter or Facebook. Again, so I think that
I said that it would be future things after the ban of just Alex Jones.
But even you conceded that he probably wouldn't do it again.
He wouldn't do it again because Instagram is holding people to unfair standards.
Well, is it necessarily unfair to want to stem the spread of hate speech?
Well, it's not necessarily hate speech if they talk about UFOs.
Well, I actually do agree with that on that point. I mean, I might be changing my opinion a bit, but that's okay. So I think that probably a more sensible solution would be to take down, say, specific posts that are deemed as hateful, but leave other posts, because obviously I do agree that free speech is a constitutional right, and I think that while these companies have a duty, like just a moral duty to, these companies have a moral duty to protect the world from hate speech and like hateful actions.
Why do they have a moral duty to do that?
Well, I feel that as citizens of the world, everyone has a moral duty to like reduce the hate and bring more love into the.
But what gives them the authority to decide what is hate speech and what is not?
Well, what gives the incentive is money. I mean, if your show is going to spread hateful content,
but no one's going to divest from Instagram because they had Alex Jones on.
Well, not Instagram itself, but maybe if another channel or another profile hosts him, they might stay away from them, and then them as a creator would be hurt by that.
And it definitely gets them a lot of bad press. It gets Facebook gets a lot of bad press when conspiracy theorists and hate speech gets posted on their platform. So I do think that they do have both a monetary incentive to do it, and I think that they should have a moral incentive, and I hope that in the future there will be a government incentive.
Okay, but I understand that, but that doesn't mean that we can't discuss whether or not they are justified in morally justified in infringing on free speech. Even if they have an economic incentive, we can still discuss whether or not they're stifling free speech by utilizing that economic incentive.
I think that in the case of Facebook, the good outweighs the bad of them banning people like Alex Jones and Louis Farrakhan from the platform. Obviously, I think that a while banning them like completely might have been a bit too extreme. I think that it was worth it because now that hate speech will not be spread on their platform. And I think promoting unity and understanding among people is of the utmost priority. And if we have to take away their free speech a little bit, then I think that's okay.
So you're saying to push a political agenda, which is what you just said, of promoting unity.
It's not a political agenda.
Yes, it is if you're saying I want to promote unity among people and I want to like bring them together and make them all, I guess, think more in the way I want them to think, then you're pursuing a political agenda, and to pursue that political agenda, you're willing to stifle free speech.
Is unity partisan? Is
It could be.
unity?
I don't think
is
it's
unity
partisan.
a partisan issue?
I'm not saying it's partisan. I'm not saying it's partisan. But
Well,
I'm saying,
but if it's not partisan,
I'm
then-
saying I'm not saying. But you're not presenting unity at face value. You're presenting unity in the way you want to present unity, in the way that you want everyone to lean further away from extremist views and to bring them closer together. Which is number one, not what all people want. Not all people want to think about unity. So you want to bring them together through stifling people that have differing opinions. And while those opinions may be extreme, it is still the same concept still applies.
But it's not just that they're extreme; it's that these extreme views are hateful. They're, like Louis Farrakhan literally called Jews satanic people. He literally called Jews satanic people, and Alex Jones literally called the victims of school shootings like false actors. And I think that no matter what political platform you believe in, that is partisan and hateful, and it just destroys unity.
Okay.
Whatever you define unity as, that destroys unity.
But the thing is, number one, you keep mentioning partisanship. What is wrong? The whole essence of free speech is to be able to have partisanship, to be able to voice differing opinions.
Right.
So when you're acting like partisanship is something we want to avoid by having free speech, you're misinterpreting the concept of partisanship.
I don't think that extremism is a valid stance. I don't think that in the discussion of if our goal is to create the best country that we can create, is establishing extremist points of view, like saying that certain demographics of people are not conducive to that image, helpful in creating a better discourse nationally.
Okay, but number one, most people do not espouse those views. I think those views are very wrong. But I think that it's immoral to deny people who are not actively calling for violence against other people. And just because people say that Donald Trump causes them, people in Charlottesville said Donald Trump caused them to like throw bricks at protesters and stuff, right? Should we ban Donald Trump from Twitter and stuff like that? By the same logic?
I will say that's a good point, and I feel like that's a question that doesn't have a concrete answer at the moment. I feel like that would require a lot of thought and discussion.
Okay, and just because these people are extremists doesn't mean that they should necessarily be censored, because some people, even if they're wrong as we think they may be, should still be able to hear differing voices. And most people are going to reject the extremist voices, which is good. But they should still have an opportunity to hear differing voices, categorize them as ridiculous rather than a corporation or a government doing them, and then come to their own conclusions of having a more moderate stance.
People are not categorizing them as ridiculous, though. People are believing them, and vulnerable people that are
a very small minority.
But
yes,
it's still,
but it's still a dangerous
still
minority.
people.
I mean, those are
Yeah.
people that can be weaponized, and people that
Anyone can be
commit
weaponized.
violence.
People say Donald Trump weaponizes them. The person who shot up a congressional baseball game I think it was baseball in Virginia, and who shot like the House Majority Whip at the time, said Bernie Sanders weaponized him. Again, should we shut down these people's accounts just because someone was weaponized by them? They should not be people like Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump and Alex Jones should not be responsible for the actions of people who do not act who act on their own free will and just simply cite them as reasons for inciting violence.
Well, this goes to the point the alternative solution they brought up earlier, where they should do it on like a post by post basis as opposed to taking down the entire account. And I think that would be the most sensible solution.
What's the difference? What's the difference from an ethical standpoint? If it's
well, then we wouldn't censor like the entire body of speech by a particular person. We're only taking away the speech that
people view as politically unaligned with their agenda. Because that's what it comes down to. Yes, extremism. I personally think extremism is bad, but I don't think that anyone should get to decide who and who does not get the right to voice their opinions on a platform.
I mean, who better than a democratically elected panel of representatives from throughout the country representing a wide variety of views from a wide variety of different people to establish what is
and again,
too extreme.
This can come down to like the 51-49 argument about democracy. So should 51% of people get the right, hypothetically, to determine what the other 49% see? No. Because people should have the freedom to draw their own conclusions. And yes, if these people are inciting violence, if they're telling people to actively go kill people, they should get shut down, they should get reported to the police or to the FBI, right? But if they're not doing that, and simply people who act in their name are doing that, then those people should be prosecuted instead of the actual people. It goes like the same argument as like should like firearms corporations be targeted by legally just because someone commits an atrocity with one of their products? No.
But they should be regulated. But they should be held accountable in the ways that we can and deem acceptable, like not producing certain types of weapons that can kill large amounts of people and giving them to the public, or not producing certain, or establishing different waiting periods, establishing different regulations to gun selling. There's different ways that we can regulate these without restricting and without following without establishing a basis of right or wrong. It's not should we ban everybody or should we ban nobody. It's more should we need to establish a system through which we can take a look at and understand what have we decided is divisive and hurtful, and what have we decided is acceptable for the national discourse and not harmful.
But on what standards can you decide what is divisive and what is hurtful?
I think it's going to take it's going to take a bipartisan, unified effort to figure this out. And honestly, I feel like a lot of the government's resources should go into solving this problem. That's my stance. I think we need to take this to the government and find a bipartisan solution.
I think we're all exhausted, so I think we're gonna call that it.
Good job, Gabe.
Good job, Gabe.
Good job, man. Good job, Phil.
Thank you, Gabe.
All right, thank you, everybody.
I may disagree with your
We're all
views,
friends
but
here.
I love you as a person.
Thank you, Gabe.
Shake your hand again.
That's the important thing.
Yeah.
We're all friends here. We all like to have discussions, and we all like to talk about our views. But in the end of the day, we all understand we're trying to do what's best for everybody.
Right.
And we're never trying to attack anybody personally. We're never trying to hurt anybody personally. We're always trying to discuss what is best for going forward, and that takes some arguing. But thank you, everybody, for watching. We will see you next week, or in the week after,
Can I
and the
do
week
the
after that.
Can I, you know?
I mean, if you really want to.
All right, I got the snap this time.
See, it doesn't work.
East.
Doesn't work.
Come on, man.
Come on, Gabe.